very keen to stay on the racing line this time.
You can see there Andrea Dovizioso, obviously late on in that session, was running quite a light fuel load, maybe in time attack mode, but he's just getting a little bit of a splash and dash to make sure he can get round this 4.3 kilometre Mandalika circuit for the practice start session. So the pit wall is pretty busy over there in Indonesia right now. There are the Pramac Ducati team, the factory Ducati Lenovo team as well, keeping a very close eye on what's happening out on circuit. Just pick up there in the background, that's of course Marc Marquez, flanked by Darren Binder. Excellent second day for Marc Marquez. He was never going to be taking big risks coming back from so many significant injuries over the last couple of years. The 8 times world champion played it safe like so many did on those tricky conditions on day one, but he was much more to the fore today. Marc Marquez, second behind Luca Marini on the timesheets, and that new Honda launching away pretty well, Lewis, by the looks of it.
It is, and Marc Marquez, I think he knows full well that the points aren't handed out until the March the 6th in Qatar. So as you say, there was no real value, I suppose, for Marc Marquez to push the boat out too much. He, more than anyone else, it's got to be in the back of his mind. I think you can only be human if it's in the back of your mind what's happened to him over the winter with the double vision that he suffered as a result of that training crash just before the Algarve Grand Prix at the end of last season. So when conditions are particularly sketchy and grip is particularly low, you can imagine Marc Marquez just wanting to leave a little bit of margin in his back pocket. And now with conditions picking up, he's decided to pick the pace up, and he's clearly looking in pretty good shape, and it's probably the best we've seen from this new Honda so far. I know Paul Espargaro was fastest yesterday, but I think conditions meant we could really scrap those lap times from yesterday. We're seeing a more representative picture today with lap times much closer to what we're expecting, and Marc Marquez is right in the mix.
Yeah, pretty good workout today for Marquez, both mind and body. He did 74 laps, which is a fair old shift out of that Mandalika circuit as a bunch of riders. Paul Espargaro there, that was a superb launch away on that new radical Honda RC213V. Not such a clean getaway yet again by Taki Nakagami. There's a few times last year where Nakagami seemed to struggle with the launch control and getting that satellite Honda off the line. Alex Rins' crew chief there, Juan Mancaso.
It's quite a long run actually to the first corner here. As you can see, you pretty much see the exit to the final corner in the background here, and it is going to be a particularly key part of the Grand Prix when the first Indonesian Grand Prix for a quarter of a century takes place next month. It's a 507-metre main straight, but the grid is pretty much at the beginning of it. It's right at the beginning of the main straight, so it's a fairly long run down to the first corner. So yeah, if you are poorly off the line, you're just going to get swallowed up in pretty short order. It's not as if you can just jump straight on the brakes and banzai into turn one. You will get swallowed up. So it is key that if you are anywhere sensible on the grid here, you do get that start right, because you could ruin your race on lap one.
So what you're saying, Lewis, is we could have 5 or 6 Ducatis in the top 5 or 6 positions on lap one in Mandalika.
There's every chance. We saw it as the people who remember the very first image of the 2021 season. We just saw a Ducati benefit, didn't we, into the turn one as Jorge Martin came steaming through the field, as Marc Marquez does what Fabio Quartararo did yesterday, and you can see a graphic demonstration there of the dust and dirt offline. Marc Marquez kicking up plumes of dust as he headed off the line, not in the direction that he started.
Well, we know Marc Marquez loves a bit of dirt tracking when he's back home in Europe. Well, that was pretty spectacular, and not in a good way for Marc Marquez. Yeah, you can just see how dirty that left-hand side of the grid is there. They're going to have to get that cleaned up for the race in about 6 weeks' time. But what we do know, as Lewis just touched upon, recent history has shown that the Ducati launch device is probably the best one out there. We saw Yamaha make big improvements when they introduced theirs from about Mugello onwards last season, but the starts, and the issue is as well that the Ducatis are really good over one lap pace, Lewis. We know that their bikes are good on soft tyres, so you would not be surprised if there's maybe one race this year a lockout of the first 2 rows from Ducati. That doesn't sound like an outlandish, crazy prediction. And with the way they are able to start and launch off the line, some riders that are on non-Ducatis this year might find the races quite difficult, particularly long, because it's a hard bike to overtake as well. They've got good braking performance and stability going into the corner. The engine and the acceleration, their electronic control, their mechanical grip means that they're so good coming off the corner as well. It looks like the most complete package going into the new season, doesn't it, with Ducati? It
does, and we've got 5 2022 Ducatis on the grid across the factory Ducati team, the Pramac Ducati team, and of course Luca Marini within the VR46 squad. So there's 5 of those on the grid, and of course the 2021 bike finished last year as the class of the field, Pecco Bagnaia winning on it 4 times in the closing 5-6 races of the season. So Enea Bastianini in particular will be a real factor in the early stages of the season if anybody is struggling to get their new packages up to speed. Marc Marquez, I think this is take 3 now. His first start went pretty well, his second far from it, so we'll see if he's nailed it on the third one. But yeah, as you say, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility to have 5 or 6 Ducatis starting in the front 2 rows of the grid when we go to Qatar, as Marc Marquez gets it much more settled that time, and more to the point, he went directly straight ahead off the line rather than hard left. But yeah, as you say, Ducati, what Ducati crave in a Grand Prix and what the others fear is when Ducati have track position in a Grand Prix, because they are just so hard to shift from the front of the field. How many times do we see it, particularly in Qatar? We saw it last year as the Yamahas and the Suzukis were trying to fight their way